OOCS into a wider galaxy, Part 341. Elsewhere, with others, capes and conundrums. Terry was outright bouncing on his feet when Harold and Todd emerged from the holodeck, checking over the now broken and heavily modified rifle that Todd had revealed. Seriously, you should have two separate rifles, one for single-shot precision and another for automatic fire. The majority of this damage is here because trying to marry the two systems made the weapon fragile, Harold remarks as he holds a piece of the broken anti-material rifle. I will admit, I did keep this thing mostly intact through axiom tricks with presence-suppressing runes on them. If I went pure mechanical, I wouldn't have been able to make it work at all. Lever action and full automatic are generally not compatible weapon features, Harold remarks. You know I can pull a string or two so you can get a pair of properly made anti-materials. One auto and one lever action. The RAM crew loves putting things together. That would be just fine, Todd remarks with a grin, looking more relaxed and more content than Terry had seen before. He then gestures right at Terry. So what kind of training have you been giving him? He mentioned you helping out, but he's a partially trained civvy. Step one of training is conditioning, both the body and the mind. Boy needs some firmness to his muscles and some discipline to keep him stable. Thankfully, he's doing well for getting both. If he wants to keep at it with me, then I have no problem helping out further. Hear that, Tiny? You're getting all sorts of training, Todd says with a smile towards Terry. Oh no. However will I survive while being taught how to kick all the ass? Woe is me. Yep, that's a teenager, Harold notes. Who's older than you? Rain remarks and Harold pauses, turns to her and sticks out his tongue before turning away and acting like he didn't do that. Really, dude? Terry asks, and there's some suppressed laughter from some of the nearby Vashanian. Harold slowly turns to look at them with a smile, then turns back to Terry. So who wants to get the accreditation to have fun on Scathach? We still need to run Terry and Todd here through the basics. Didn't you say that it would need to be a baby or a cleverly disguised house pet to fail that test? Torment asks. Yes, but it's also been said that I'm apparently an infant, so perhaps the test is a little skewed? Harold asks. Ah, the joys of newly emerged clones. So many jokes, so little time until they expire. Which, were you bioprinted or grown? Grown, but I had Dr. Skitterway herself oversee and approve my treatment, Harold says. Good. Todd notes, and there's a sensation around him. In his axiom alone that is quickly less smoothed at and more wrestled into submission. There was something sensitive there. Yeah, it's a hell of a thing to be Ship of Theseus back to health, Harold remarks. What? Roughly half the group asked the question all at once. If I may? Observer Wu asks, holding up the pen he had been taking notes with. Harold nods to him. The Ship of Theseus is a mental construct that asks the question if an object with all its components replaced is the same thing. In the question, it posits that a man named Theseus owns a ship. Over the years, the ship receives some damage to its components until every component is replaced. Is it the same ship? Physically, no, but it's still his ship, Torment states. Ah, but that leads into the next part. Say someone makes a new ship out of the discarded parts of Theseus's ship. Is that also the Ship of Theseus? You know, in this context, it's the idea of someone repurposing the biomatter you were composed of before the process and using it to make a new clone. Yes, Harold says, and there's a pause. Ew, Terry mutters. So you're implying that due to the fact you've had your entire body replaced with bioprinted parts to keep you from rapidly aging into dust, that there is a non-zero chance of a clone wandering around made of that original clone meat? And the question boils down to, are you made of the new meat you, or is he made of the old meat you? Rain demands with a finger pointed directly into Harold's face. Kinda. My head hurts. I'm doing the stupid tests. Rain. Didn't you already pass? I'm doing all of them, Rain declares dramatically, and Terry follows her back into the training area. Todd follows them both. Okay, so we're doing more of this. Got it, Harold says and follows them in. Terry passes the first test with ease, and Todd literally does the whole thing backwards and standing on his hands. It's rather surreal. Thankfully, the second level he takes a little more seriously when he finds out that the detection traps are also on the ceiling, and then laughs at the explanation of them being there, because many other sonar had tried to simply walk the test by gripping the ceiling with their feet and walking through the test. Thankfully for Todd, the obstacles in the holodeck are holograms, and therefore he doesn't have to pay for actually breaking his target in a single brutal blow. He then has to use another one to show he can hit things without reducing them to broken pieces. The question if he's really that upset about the rifle goes unanswered. The third level has some complications, mostly in that there's the question of validity when Harold tags in Todd to help him evaluate the rest of the Vishanian. They answer by putting on red helmets that cover all but the eyes. Both of them. Terry laughs for at least a minute straight. Then he struggles on the actual hand-to-hand part of the test, as he's not really sure how to use two batons at once without getting in his own way, and he needs to show skill in using more than just his hands and feet. He is, however, complimented on how far he's come at physically fighting. Apparently, he's got a very mean hook. The throwing weapons are fun, though. He needs to work on his aim a bit. All right, I'm only letting you in groups of 4 at most. Todd is going to show how it's done. The objectives are to search for incriminating information on your target and take them down. Then extract to the roof where I will be there as a final combat test. Their conditions, though, being detected at any time as an automatic failure. Incriminating the wrong target is a failure. Use of excessive force on any of the patrolling opponents is a failure, as is failing to defeat the final combat test. Now, as for additional obstacles, you have 10 minutes before dedicated searchers start scouring the building for you. They're going to be cheating because the sixes inside them can't actually keep up with an actively thinking person. So they're always going to be searching within a few rooms of your location at the furthest. If you move locations, they will move with you. Furthermore, if the searchers lose contact with each other for too long, they start searching for each other, and the searchers have an additional failure condition. If they find a disabled guard, they put all the remaining guards and themselves into overdrive, widening their fields of vision, moving faster, and grouping up. It's not a guaranteed failure, but it will make things immensely more difficult. Any questions? What would you actually do if you met someone who was made out of the chunks of meat that used to be your body? Terry asks. Grab the hard liquor and get what's likely to be a really weird story out of them. Any other questions? Ones about the test, preferably? Is there any penalty for disabling too many guards? Yes, all guards will individually go into a high alert status if they discover a single disabled guard. If more than 10% of all guards are in a high alert status, then all of them will join them. But this is also an advantage. If in a high alert state they find previously undiscovered disabled guards, they will enter a panicked state which can spread like the high alert state. In a panicked state, the guards will become erratic, and if they are startled by yourself or a fellow guard, they will open fire without checking. Friendly fire will not count against you. Furthermore, while panicked, they will not be investigating thoroughly, and their erratic movements can isolate them. So we can use psychological warfare on them? Sort of. Again, 6, not really panicking, but in the panic state, it will be moving at higher speeds and in randomly chosen directions. Are they sound sensitive? Todd asks. They are, but they're only at the level of Sonear or Fossa sound sensitivity on request. Crank them up. I want to go all the way. Really? They'll hear your echolocation and come running if I do, Harold says, and Todd smiles widely, showing that, yes, he has a lot of fangs. Just what I wanted to hear. Do I need anything before I go in? Todd asks, and Harold tosses him a device that only exists in the holodeck. Tracker? Tracker. First obstacle is the fence followed by the open ground between yourself and the building. No one with a tracker is going to be counted to or can interact with this part of the simulation. So everyone who wants to watch him, feel free to walk in without worrying, Harold says as he opens the unlocked gate and steps in before closing it behind him. Todd reaches out and finds that for him it is locked, prompting Terry to open the gate and close it in his uncle's face. Cute, Todd notes and receives a raspberry in return. Adorable. Then he launches himself over the fence and dives onto the ground to roll to the side and get behind a tree that was at the edge of the lawn. He starts peeking over the side and watching the guard patrols. So do we join him or watch him? Torment asks. He wants to show off and he substantially increased the difficulty. I'd advise against it, Harold says. Is it really that big a jump? There are a lot of bits of technology that make sounds in the frequency that only races like the Sceneer can detect. The guards now detect them and will be drawn to them. Really, Terry asks. Really, most more audibly sensitive races have taught themselves to ignore the sound, even to their detriment, but it's there. And a communicator in active use gives a tone that can be heard. It's in the protean, it gives off a vaguely distant chime. Really? It's not even unpleasant, and most sonar are so used to it we barely notice it. But it is there, Todd confirms. And now. He flits across the open field and melds in the shadows under the windows before slinking around, then crawling straight up the wall using his powerful feet and claws, not even bothering with things like pipes or contact points. The Vishanian then joined the group inside. It's on the third floor of 5 that Todd enters the building, and Harold jumps up to follow. He watches as Todd quickly scans the music room with classical instruments from at least 4 cultures displayed ostentatiously. No information, though. Then the door opens, and as the guard comes in, Todd is already on the ceiling and giving Harold a dirty look as he's pointing right at him, and ignored entirely by the guard who vaguely scans the room, then leaves. Todd then drops down and lands silently next to Harold with an unimpressed look. They're not going to react to me no matter what I do. I'm just making fun, Harold states and receives a nod. The Vishanian are now climbing into the window, and Terry is staring from where he's gripping the wall outside. As Todd leaves the room, he does so in absolute stealth and has to restrain the urge to roll his eyes at the sight of Observer Wu walking up and watching with earnestness. If it at all helps, think of this like training to deal with the absurd, Harold remarks as Todd scrambles along the ceiling and into the next room. So do you know how often Sonier used the ceiling trick in this stage of the testing? I'm told it's nearly universal. If they can't fly, then they crawl where no one else can reach them. Being fair, it's a good instinct stealth-wise, Harold says. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 342. Elsewhere with others. Whatever else can be said about Todd, he knows how to case a room and do it fast. He shifts around and finds a few unusual pieces that he compares to the data booklet that he had been given by Harold during the 3rd test. He shifts through several rooms and then outright pounces on one of the guards and drags them into a side room to hide them under the bed before slipping upwards and outwards for the roof. Harold is already up there to meet him. Bit too easy, isn't it? Harold asks. Doesn't really compare to searching through records, stalking a potential criminal, and then gathering information and snooping through their files, Todd remarks. Well, again, this is civilian grade. I honestly expected you to deliberately run out the clock and start playing mind games with the guards, Harold remarks, and Todd scoffs. Simulated panic. It's nothing, it's fake, Todd remarks. It doesn't compare to the raw sense of a proper hunt. I've done simulations before. The whole family has. I see. And how does this compare? Poorly. Father has some pretty strict standards, Todd states, and Harold nods. We still have one more issue. The combat test, Harold says, and Todd nods before rushing at him. Harold deflects a few punches, skids back as a block absorbs a kick, and nods. And that's it. Really. Like I said, this is for civilians. The idea that it can challenge a fully trained soldier is kind of ridiculous. Even one that doesn't crawl on ceilings and fly should be able to get around all of this with ease. Just keep your head up and move, Harold remarks. I'm a little disappointed. I get it, but disappointed. Yeah, it's a big thing if you're not trained, but if you are, it's just a day of basic, Harold remarks even as the Vishanian arrive. Yeah, sorry to say that the drama level is lower than most of you expect. A veteran bounty hunter against an aptitude test isn't going to be a challenge for the hunter. That's a pity. What about level 5? You passed a theoretical level 6, Harold remarks with a grin. Oh, really? Whipping out anti-materials mid-fight and have it work while staying non-lethal is impressive. Sorry to say, man, this is child tier for you, Harold remarks, and Todd hangs his head and sighs. I know. I was just starting to enjoy myself, too. Todd sighs to himself. Well, look at things this way. Now you get to see little Terry try, Harold remarks as the rest of the group slowly arrives at the roof. True, but is it fair? It's considered fair to let people scout. But you've done this sort of thing before, so I figured you didn't need it. Besides, there's no real surprises, Harold says, more for the show of the people that arrived than for Todd. All right, let's reset it and start again, Todd remarks, and I clap my hands. The holodeck shifts around to reshape itself so they're now standing outside the mansion rather than on top. I've been wanting to do that for so long and am so glad the programming actually worked. I want to say lame, but that was actually pretty good, Rain remarks and Harold chuckles. Anyways, it was always going to be a wash with Todd. This is his average day with safeties on. No, this is my average morning with the safeties on. There's no sudden surprise adept, obstructive officers, or random bombs, Todd remarks. Well, there we go. We know how to up the difficulty, Harold remarks. How about we try it here and now, Terry asks. Can we try it first? And our invisibility is allowed, right? It is, but remember what happened last time you used your stealth. The computer couldn't tell where you were, so it started logging in everything and acting like you were potentially everywhere. It still handled it. Yes, but the maintenance crew gave me shit because we caused the computer to overheat in some parts. So if you girls do your stealth, we're having a limited area rendered so you don't overclock the computer, Harold says. So only one instance of this. Otherwise, I'm going to end with burnout motherboards thrown at me. As if they could hit you, Terry says. Not physically, but emotionally, Harold says with a dramatic brush away of a tear that isn't there. Right, Terry says before grinning. Rev the machines, I'm going in. Terry is then covered in purple film that darkens and then blends to his surrounding environment. It stretches and twists to give him a pair of ears and he slips into the yard. Back out here, I didn't give you the go-ahead, Harold says, and a visual part of the scenery stomps out and waits impatiently before blending in again. Now go. Was that just a power move or... I was waiting for the sensors to turn off the echolocation detection feature, Harold remarks. Yeah, that's a bit much for you. Todd teases and Harold nods before Terry then rushes back in, moving slowly so he doesn't sabotage his camouflage. I can't help but notice the shortest of the snake women is also missing. Yes, she went in. I'm curious as to how her stealth is slipping around my echolocation, Todd says. We were designed to be a species of assassins. Almost every common form of stealth detection is accounted for, even by babes fresh from the tube, Torment says after a few moments. Designed? Their species is reaching out for the first time. Give it a few months and you'll probably be able to see more, Harold says. Right, Todd says. How do you watch over your children when they can turn invisible? Tracking chips in nurseries. When you're finished your training, you are then trusted to be anywhere you wish and the chip is removed. Torment states as she pokes at a part of her hood where one of the scales is slightly out of pattern. Makes sense. When do the chips go in? Todd asks. Before they're removed from the tube. There's not even a scar when they come out. It's a mark of pride to have the mark. Your first and only unofficial badge of honor. Oh, Harold suddenly says. Nice to know what that was. Todd wordlessly turns to face him, and Harold just smirks before pointing to the building where Terry's entering on the ground floor. I know he's there. I can hear him, Todd says. Right. Saunier would be more reliant on hearing than sight, Harold remarks. That's right, Todd says. So what did you find? I know where the unofficial badge of another Vishanyan is. That is all. Right. Right, you did. Velocity cuts herself off. Todd turns to her, and she says nothing. Now I'm even more curious. Too bad, Harold states. It's on my inner thigh, Velocity states, and Harold sighs as Todd laughs. So what does it say that Harold here is the more bashful of you two? It says he values details about me more than I do, which honestly is flattering, Velocity says. So, I actually did some looking into the human consideration of your character, How, how close is it? It is accurate in that I am one of the most dangerous members out of my family, not due to greater skill or strength, but willingness to kill. Hafid is the runner-up in the contest. And dying and coming back to life through some kind of poison pool of madness? I was badly injured when I was younger, and it took me a long time in stasis to stay alive, and it was followed by a regeneration coma to recover. It was a wake-up call for me, and I stopped playing gentle with people who target children, Todd explains. So no overly elaborate attempt to get your killer out of prison so you could force your father to choose between them and you? That was the dumbest thing I ever watched in any form of media, Todd remarks. The bitch that injured me ended up being shanked in prison when her cellmates learned she had been peddling in the flesh of children and had potentially killed a young man who came to bring her to justice. Really? A Carib thug broke part of her antlers to sharpen a point and rip her neck out, then stabbed her with the extra shank. I think she also had a cousin in the monster stable, Todd says before shrugging. Saved me the trouble. Terry is shifting from room to room, wafting small amounts of astral forest to use for woodwalking. He also near literally runs into Rain, who's now completely undetectable until she steps on a bit of astral forest matter. Then he gets to track her. Unfortunately, he has no idea what's a clue and what's not. Is it the gun, the picture, the gloves, all of them? None of them? He has no idea what he's doing. He checks the data packet he was given. It's not much help. Who the hell is Zeus? The picture is of a woman and the word Hera is on the back. The gun has had 2 shots fired and he closes the cupboard as the door opens and then waits as the guard scans the room and then leaves. Looking clean through him and not seeing. Camouflage is great. He slips out after the guard, just wondering, even as he stalks it at a comfortable walking pace. How was he even supposed to tell this thing apart from the others? It's designed to look like a strong Tret man with large muscles and a brutish disposition. But what is he supposed to tell about it? How does he tell which one is actually a threat? The little bit of jewelry on it? A black diamond-shaped pin on the lapel? What does that even mean? He slips into a side room and scans through the material. Harley Quinn? As in the Joker's girlfriend? She gets a dedicated goon? Wait, is Zeus someone? He flips through it a bit more and finds the name Maxi Zeus, a madman who believes himself an ancient god and uses electrical attacks. There is a quick list of other members of his delusional pantheon, and Hera is supposedly his queen. But was that evidence actually pointing to him or something else? 5 minutes till the hunters come out, Harold calls. And Rain, I know where you are, and I will make sure you have them close. Same for you, Terry. He'll just have to risk it. He slips out of the side room and begins searching for a guard with a lightning bolt on his person. He passes a question mark. A guy with a belt made of strange leather. A man in a purple suit and a man in a heavy winter coat despite the weather. So he goes up a floor and finds a man looking obviously drugged, another with a top hat, and then finally one with a pair of lightning bolt cufflinks. Terry waits until his patrol takes him past the others, and he grabs it around the head and drags it into a closet before slamming the top of his head into the back of it. It crumples and he frisks the guard for things. He finds a gun, a radio, a full wallet, a condom. Why a condom? There's also brass knuckles, a secondary magazine for the gun, and a knife. Terry, you're disqualified, Harold calls out. What? He demands. That was not the correct target. You're attacking the team of the victim of your target, Harold calls out. The scenario is infighting among rogues. You identified the victim team, not the victimizer team. Oh, Terry says. Clear the building. Rain is still searching, and that guard is resetting in 5 seconds. Harold calls out, and Terry sighs as he leaves the closet and walks out with the suit vanishing around him. How was I supposed to know it's about a fight between villains? Page 1, paragraph 1 of the notes, Harold asks, and Terry pulls out the booklet and opens it to the first page. Rumors on the street state one villain has attacked another. Gather clues to determine victim and perpetrator, determine motivation, and exit. Attacking the wrong targets is a failure. One of the targets has some of the clues. Terry reads out loud before groaning. And that's why you never fire without a clear sight on your target. It's easy to make mistakes you can't take back, Todd says before putting a hand on Terry's head. Don't worry, though. This is just training. You want to make your mistakes here. Well, at least we got something to do on the way to Scathach, Terry notes. Or, and hear me out here, Harold begins. You hang out with your family and not the weird alien man that you only kind of know? That is an option, Todd says. Huh, right, I should just... Terry says, then vanishes and Todd blinks. So how long until he remembers that he's my ride in and out? Todd asks. Right now, Terry says, reappearing and grabbing Todd by the shirt. Sorry. Then they're both gone. Was that more rude or weird? Velocity asks after a few moments. It was both. The rude or weird levels will vary from person to person, though. Harold answers. More rude than weird for me, but for most more weird than rude. OOCS into a wider galaxy, Part 343. Elsewhere, with others. The tests continue for quite a while, actually. The Vishanian reinforcements are the type to work in a larger squad and not a small strike force. They're good soldiers, but they're in the position where they need special forces or a dedicated specialist to assist. If not for their natural stealth and the fact that both Todd and Terry gave clear, by the numbers examples on how to work this, they would have all failed their first attempt. That said, only a small handful passed, and it seemed to be mostly due to luck at that. They could scour the area, they could put things together, but their tendency to clump together caused more than a few guards to slam clean into them. Or rather, it was the guards getting too close for the Vishanians' comfort and being reflexively taken out, which would eventually alert another guard, and they start racing around before getting too close, and then taken down, and then it just starts spiraling out of control. The problem is that it only takes so long until one of H-10 makes a mistake, grabbing the guards until, "That's a lethal strike, your team has failed," Harold calls out. It's almost unreasonable to use non-lethal amounts of force on opponents. Yes, but that's why this is a training routine. The level they're practicing at, they'll have the occasional actor. And while we trust our undaunted to survive anything, having someone go full lethal in training is not okay. The first 3 tests were about capability above all else. This still has that as a priority, but also restraint, Harold remarks. If we could use Axiom to knock them out, then this would be so much simpler. But you can't. You need to apply just enough force to knock them silly, but not enough force to knock them dead. And the line between the two is fine and hard to find, Harold remarks. Trust me, I ran this a few times myself. The line is hard to get right. I auto-failed when I assumed the system was set up that I could just kick them hard and be done with it. The computer then simulated a gore fountain from the stump I kicked a head clean off of. When was that? Yuria asks. During my first week on the ship before we met, Harold says. It took me adjusting the program and just lining up a few hundred of the bastards to see exactly where the point of lethality was. And even then, it still took me a bit before I stopped screwing up. Had to figure out how to hit someone in each part of the body without killing them with every part of my body. The amount of brute force required to knock someone out with a fist to the face is massively different from the force needed to do the same with a knee to the gut. Ah, like the long lesson for learning to feel for when you're breaking bones with your tail, Giria says as she coils her large tail up and causes the entire length to bulge as she flexes the muscles along it, then relaxes. That was enough force to kill just about anyone in this room. Unless they've got some good armor or are channeling a lot of Axiom. Okay, we've seen enough of this. I appreciate that you're willing to help acclimatize us to our destination. But a proper layout of the ship is required, and we have yet to see the bridge or the support craft docked with this vessel. Torment states, and Harold raises an eyebrow. Is she speaking for everyone? Are we leaving? Harold asks, projecting his voice so every Vishanian, including those in the building and actively taking the test, can hear him. Sir, yes, sir, the group calls out. Very well then. This way, please, Harold says before clapping his hands and the holodeck begins to deactivate, safely lowering and depositing the Vishanians still in the testing area to the ground, and the room is reduced to the projecting panels again. He frowns before holding up his hand and channeling Axiom. Numerous rubber bullets fly into his hand and form a large ball of material he balances in one hand. All right, let's go to the RAM. They'll be able to make use of this, and no doubt you'll all like to know how to requisition sometime from their manufacturing power in order to get something. They can make pretty much anything in there. Anything? Torment challenges him. Well, yeah, anything. Even people, if you count them, slapping together cloning equipment and running it for a cycle or three. Capes and conundrums. Of the times now? Admiral Heinola asks incredulously, barely audible over the sound baffling and white noise generators, drowning out the world howling outside. Inevitable. Maintain position in orbit and do not enter atmosphere. The world is undergoing an enormous eruption and will not be safe to fly in until after it dissipates. Confirm that you received my warning. Copy that, Admiral Heinola. We weren't even planning to get much closer. It looks like the entire planet is having a heart attack from our angle. While not the biggest, this is a bigger eruption, and we don't know how much longer it's going to last. Our math says a few more hours, but the math has been wrong before. Admiral Heinola states. Anyways, welcome to Scathak. If you're not properly shielded, you're ash on the wind. Quite the welcome party, Captain Rangi states. Can we set up a portal doorway to lead at the surface? Yes, but do you have the expertise to attune one properly on your end? We have several Axiom-attuned contractors. Good, I'll send the information. I have to warn you, though. There's a reason you're hearing industrial-scale white noise. It's allowed right now. Admiral Heinola explains and Captain Rangi nods. All right, I'll see you soon, sir. Have you been informed about our other guests? I have. I must admit, your little trip from place to place has proven far, far more exciting than I anticipated. You're going to have quite the story when you return home. No doubt, Captain Rangi says as he checks his incommoding files. And we got it. All right, I'll send this to our Axiom users, and we'll see if I can't share a drink with you in the hour. Don't rush yourself. Outside the cities is pure death. Even the places away from the volcanic entrances are having cinders and ash rain down on them. Admiral Heinola says, before turning to his window and staring as something scrapes against the city shield. Is something wrong? Captain Rangi asks. One of the giant iron snails is grinding across the shield. Giant iron snail. Harmless local wildlife, preyed upon by the lava serpents. Their newborns are the size of a fist, and they grow to the size of a house like that specimen. Like I said, harmless. They survive primarily off of Axiom and sheer thermal power. They also digest numerous metals, primarily iron. Interesting. If you want, it's not too hard to buy a shell as a souvenir. This is a tourist world after all. May as well pick up some knickknacks. Admiral Heinola states picking up an object from his desk that is revealed to be a snail shell with numerous pens in it. It's made of polished metal and he puts it back down. Interesting, Captain Rangi states. Anyways, do not bring any ship into atmosphere until after the storms have passed. The sheer amount of poison, heat, and brutalizing baking, blast wave winds is enough to throw even a battleship into the walls of the canyons. Dauntless-class ships are tough. But this is Mother Nature's rage room, well beyond what that ship is designed to endure. Thank you for your warning, and Captain Rangi looks up to the main screen, where he can see a dark pyroclastic cloud suddenly illuminate as it builds up enough static to cause a thunderstorm from the pyroclastic ash cloud. It's literal hell. Yes, Admiral Heinola says simply. Anyways, see you soon. In person. Captain Rangi bids him, and Admiral Heinola nods before the link closes. Wonder how long it took him to grow a mustache that big, Shadow asks. I have no idea, but he's armor and a turban away from looking like he walked out of a period piece as a warlord, Captain Rangi notes. And that should, Harold notes as he finishes aligning the portal, and the air within it ripples, glows, and then a hole appears in it that grows and vanishes into the border of the portal itself. An important safety feature if you didn't want something sliced off. He then looks up a bit as he notices he's got an opposite on the other side. Well, you've been eating your Wheaties. Tamales, actually, Santiago says with a grin before holding out his hand. Harold, right? This is technically your first visit. First is Harold, but I've got a Herbert operating system, and that's got some memories of this place. Nice. How's your mind incorporating that? I've had time and am living very differently. I'm unmistakably myself now. Good, I'm glad to hear that. And I believe our snake-headed friends back there are our Vishanian guests? Yes, sir, they certainly are. How are pastel women with long snake necks stealthy? Santiago asks, and Rain puts her hands on her hips and then fades out of sight. That'll do it. Main rule, if the door is guarded or locked, leave it alone. He then steps to the side and Harold steps out. No massive vibrations. I assume we're in a blimp? Yep, but even on the ground, the buildings are designed to absorb the shaking from the excessive eruptions, Santiago says, and then steps a little further back as several more Vishanian join them. So may I have some introductions, please? Right, this is Rain. That's Velocity. Our first two, the purple one in the lead is Torment, and the rest are stubborn about giving out names, and while I know them, they don't want me to know them. No one likes their privacy being pried into, Velocity chides him. True, but not even giving a name is rude, Harold remarks. We're running into weird culture things, aren't we? Santiago asks. More learned paranoia. Their first couple generations went through the ringer and it became their thing, Harold replies. Well, that's a thing, Private Stream says, appearing around Harold's elbow, and is promptly used as an armrest. Sure is, Harold agrees. Yeah. Another Private Stream notes as he climbs up Harold's back and peers over his shoulder. Harold reaches back, grabs the second stream by the head and lifts him up and over. By the time his arm is fully extended, the stream fades into a small but otherwise featureless little robot with a uniform and several devices hanging from it. He then picks up the other one, another blank puppet piloted from light years away. Is this the new thing? I want to hang out with my little brother. Is that a bad thing? Private Stream asks as he emerges from a nearby storage room. Harold catches a glimpse of a dozen more packed in like sardines. Not at all. I'm just wondering if I'm about to be swept over by the endless stream. Harold asks, and the stream still active opens the door. Abort mission, boys! He's on to us! He calls back, and then rushes in himself as both the puppets suddenly reactivate, and one squirms out of Harold's grip and rushes into the storeroom. The last one just gives Harold a grin, a pair of blank white eyes and red and blue facial markings bringing a grin to Harold's face. Well, either way, good to see you. See you, Harold says, throwing up air quotes. Oh, we're doing it with these, got it. Herbert says, throwing up his own quotations, and Harold snorts before Private Stream suddenly smiles wide and rushes up to the Vishanian. Looks over them all and his eyes settle on Velocity. He walks up and starts pacing around her. So, you're my Vishanian-in-law. Glad to meet you. We'll have a proper one when you reach Centris. Okay, Velocity says as she has no idea what to do when she's hugged by a very, very cute-looking child, or the image of one projected over a prosthetic body. And you're pregnant too. I think it might be best if you stick on Centris once you get here, if you haven't given birth or laid the egg yet. It's better to have new family arrive surrounded by family after all, and all your in-laws and new nephews and nieces are family. How many children do you have? Hundreds? Herbert replies, and Velocity looks right at Harold in seeming horror. He has 100 wives. There were some twins involved. Harold says simply, Oh, thank goodness. Hey, I got a question, Rain says. Yeah, Herbert asks. The face craziness really passed to you too? Yep, I was actually part of that big spell. I was the one focusing it to Harold, so it went through me too. Herbert admits. Oh, so how does it feel to wake up an entire nebula? Fun, it's something I'm going to have to work hard to top. It'll take me at least a few more weeks to pull something like that off. No blowing up Centris, Harold says. Oh, come on, Herbert protests. Why do you get to do the cool things? Because I'm the cool brother, remember, Harold asks, and Herbert sticks his tongue out at Harold, who instantly reciprocates. These are the undaunted intelligence experts? Torment asks incredulously. And in the single moment you dropped your guard, one of them put a note on your back. Observer Wu states, and Torment starts reaching around her back and finding a sticky note. Gotcha, it reads. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 344, Capes and Conundrums. I'm not certain which is the greater absurdity, the fact that reading comics and playing games were portions of my research, or the fact it appears to be paying off, Observer Wu says as he overlooks the city. The storm is still ongoing, bathing the Gothic architecture in a light halfway between the city being on fire and a simultaneous sunrise and sunset. Just wait until you meet its people, Observer. The so near are an energetic and earnest sort, seeking identity and wrestling with all the complications of finding oneself on a species-wide scale. Admiral Heinala notes beside him. He then turns to motion to his desk where a large pitcher of ice water and 2 glasses are prepared, as well as a plush leather chair for the Observer, in addition to the Admiral's office chair. You would think that a species with a clear division that leads to mutually exclusive diets would have more separation, but there's so little in the way they call their own that they blend together. Mutually exclusive diets? Fruits so near are herbivorous. Like most herbivores, they can digest meat, but they have little in the way of hunting instincts, so they're more herbivore with some scavenging tendencies. Bloodsonier are obligate carnivores. They simply cannot extract all the nutrients they need from plant matter. Granted, they can get it through clone meat and nutrient supplements. So we even have some vegan bloodsonier. But you would think that the presence or absence of a hunting instinct would lead to a greater cultural divide, but it has not. That is strange, Observer Wu agrees. Anyways, would you be all right if we began our interview now? Get it out of the way, so to speak. Quite all right. I am fully consenting to such a thing. Admiral Heinala states, and Observer Wu places a small recording device on the desk between them. Now then, good observer, what would you like to know about? This very unusual setting that this particular branch of the Undaunted is taking part in. Define the world, the peoples, this city, and the circumstances that brought you here, please. Of course, this world is Scathach, a mineral-rich world with an unusually active magma core. The planet is roughly 40% active volcanic trench and surrounding stone. This is different from a traditional volcano, as a volcanic trench is when the ground is simply torn asunder and a long, deep caldera leads directly to the molten heart of the world. 25% of the world is immensely lush islands of life, fed by the enormous ashfall and frequent rains caused by the remaining 35% being shockingly clean ocean, or rather, freshwater lake. The salt content on the world is so low that the oceans can be directly drunken from with no ill effect. This chilled mineral water was taken directly from the nearest ocean. Remarkable, Observer Wu says before taking a sip of the water. This water is delicious, the sort one would pay a premium for back on Earth. The locals export it in small amounts. The sheer aggression of the world turns against most colonization and industrialization efforts. But there are colonies. Yes, and that's due to the wildlife of this world. While things such as the iron snails are fairly harmless, Admiral Heinala explains as he picks up his pen holder and turns it to reveal the spiral snail shell polished to a mirror shine. The true prize are the Scathach lava serpents, a form of megafauna so enormous and dangerous that merely approaching one can kill a man. Approaching in protective armor will have it ignore you, but approaching in any kind of sufficiently large craft will have the creature instantly attack. And they are of such enormous size that even a capital-class ship can be threatened by the sheer force they bring to bear. What makes these serpents so dangerous? Several factors. Sheer size is one. Aggression to anything they can properly perceive is another. Their vision is based on movement, but anything below a certain size is dismissed. If you're not in the 10-foot-tall range, then they won't notice you unless directly attacked. But the sheer size of the things means it can crush you without noticing. To say nothing of the heat, which is close to literally hellish as it is possible to reach. They are made of molten metal, hotter even than magma. It's how they swim through it. Stone goes runny when they make contact with it. Why would anyone build in proximity to these horrors? I wasn't finished describing the dangers. You see, these things are hostile to each other and often kill one another off. But every now and then, a large number of them survive until mating season, laying their eggs in the magma sea below. Then they all hatch and the juveniles fight, spread, and expand, spilling out from the trenches and spreading over the world until the cold above finishes them. Sometimes they run over the green patches, sometimes into the oceans. These regular apocalypses have wiped out locally developed primitives. That's horrifying. Again, why would anyone build near these awful things? Because they are prey to people. These monsters are points of pride to slaughter. Have you encountered the Grand Huntress and Matriarch Isma? I have, a wonderful woman, if a little intimidating and overbearing, Observer Wu admits. She brought Herbert Jameson, the original to your clone companion Harold, for the sake of this interview, going on record, to this world to hunt these monsters. They are the prey of those who seek to kill the most brutal of monsters. While on Earth hunting something like a whale or elephant is a reprehensible act, in the wider galaxy, hunting giant monsters to prove oneself is an entire cultural touchstone for uncountable peoples and cultures. And how prolific is this hunting culture? So prolific that the Scathach lava serpent, a monster as close to a physically manifested demon of the apocalypse as the most fervent Bible thumper can imagine, needs specific hunting seasons, or it would go extinct. These nigh unimaginable monsters are all but helpless against the sheer strength and fervor of people. Which brings some comfort, doesn't it? Admiral Hainala says with a smile. I imagine not everyone would be so comforted. Perhaps not, but after seeing how destructive these things are, and then realizing that for all the mindless devastation they cause, that they are the playthings of people who can be reasoned with, it bring me comfort at any length, Admiral Hainala says before taking a sip of his water, to say nothing of the fact that such simple beauty can be found even on a world like this, where massive portions of it can be suddenly covered in images of hell itself as the world convulses and twists. It's a spiritual experience to go out in the aftermath of a storm and walk along the grasses, teeming with life and knowing that the devastation was what brought it to life. That is certainly a viewpoint. Anything else about the world in question? There is comparatively little in the way of farmlands or resources that are exported, but they do exist. I'll be sure to have you sample more than the water while you're here. On my own time and with my own funds, I've been setting up a vineyard. I think that should I tire of military life, then a few decades perfecting the vintner's art would be a nice change of pace. Admiral Hainala says, and Observer Wu nods. No doubt it will be long after my time until such a treat is available. Undoubtedly, Admiral Hainala says. Now, you wanted to know about the people of Scathach, next, correct? I do. The population is 60% Sonier. This world, due to its proximity to the Sonier homeworld, is one of their earliest colony systems. It was seen as a personal challenge as a species to try and populate such a hostile place. And the remaining population? 20% Tret, 10% Yuya and Zedin, with the remainder being spread in random smatterings of other species. Us humans are roughly the fraction of fraction's fraction, if you round up, Admiral Hainala explains. Now, the Sonier are unusual as a species. It's happened a few times before, and we actually have an instance of such happening as we speak with the Jalak birds. But the Sonier were a species that were actively hunted when they achieved full sentience and sapience, elevating them from mere beasts to people. As such, they made first contact the moment they could comprehend it. So there was no time for them to develop an actual culture of their own, nor a language more advanced than screeching at each other and pointing around. Is it truly so bad? If Earth was in contact with the wider galactic community, apes, ravens, and elephants would all be considered for potential first contact, to say nothing of some species of whales and other sea life, like the octopus or dolphin. But then again, we would also have the rapid evolution that Axiom affords. It would be the product of many, many generations to have things such as ravens be fully aware and capable of integrating with human society, whereas out here, it would be the product of 10, 12 at most. While interesting, I do need it to be spelled out for the people that are cherry-picking these interviews, please, Observer Wu says, gesturing to the recording device. The best way to understand this is to see another species. Are you familiar with the Valran? The harpy like men and women? Big, strong bird feet with sharp talons, wings in place of arms with thumbs at the central joint, and feathers for hair? I have. I met one by the name of Captain Shrek. He's an excellent example. Now, the Valran were uplifted during the end of their Stone Age, or perhaps early Bronze Age, depending on tribe. As a result, they have little in the way of cultural moors and cling to them fiercely. The Shriketalons, being nigh universal pacifists, is one such example of such. The Sonir do not even have that. Their first language is galactic trade, for they never developed one of their own. Even though they can produce and hear sounds and frequencies that many species cannot, they only speak in understandable tones because they know no others. There are no Sonir stories, legends, or heroes. No Sonir faith, no Sonir cuisine, nor technology, nor art. Whether they admit it or not, this has left a gaping hole in the species. The closest they have is a naming convention, and that apparently started as a joke. Naming convention? Mercy and cruelty are two of the earliest undaunted allied Sonir. Those names are not translations. That is simply what they are called, and it's just a one-off thing. Many of them try to emulate the spiritual aspects of bats, but not as Sonir understand them, as other species understand them. From the view of an outsider looking in, it appears to be an entire people who are playing at dress-up or the equivalent. I see. This leads us nicely into the city we're in. It had no official name, but is in the process of being renamed Gotham. The reason for this is because the local Sonir have decided to latch on to human entertainment for a sense of cultural identity. Most of them will state that they're doing this for the sake of entertainment and economy. After all, these cities are most prosperous during hunting season. But since they took up a comic book-like appearance, their profits have been up. But that's not the only reason, is it? No, it is not. It is because they are in desperate need for an identity, and as they are evolved from bats, and the Batman is inspired by a bat, it seemed to me as if it were inevitable. And Admiral Cistern just let this happen? Even if he were the type inclined to massive judicial warfare and had the time and money to pursue a cease and desist order, there's the fact that cross-planetary boundaries, such things are borderline impossible to uphold. To say nothing of how quickly this was done. A great deal of what happens in the galaxy are going to happen one way or another, and your choices are find a way to profit or just get out of the way. Admiral Cistern found a way to profit, which leads to the circumstances that brought me here. And those being? Administration, outreach, and recruitment. The locals wanted some kind of official seal of approval for what they're doing. We, as in the Undaunted, want more recruits, but not just random fools off the street. We have plenty of those. So we found an agreement. The locals want games, both for their own entertainment and to draw in tourists. We administer and maintain them. They're themed after the Batman comics, but in truth, they're training exercises. People that impress us are offered a chance to sign on to the Undaunted. We've had a fair few takers, especially among local men. As you no doubt know already, the galaxy is almost entirely female, and the men are closely protected. As a result, few families will let a man sign up to a military. But playing a safe, administered game in a vacation hotspot, that's different. Accepting a job offer by the administrators because they were so impressed, again, different, even if they fully understand that we're the same group. A strange quirk of psychology, Observer Wu notes. It removes the immediate thought of danger to those who want them safe and damn all other consequences. Interesting. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 345. Capes and Conundrums. This place really has changed, Harold notes as he looks around familiar streets for the first time. Kind of surreal to know I've never been here, but still knowing the layout without ever studying a map. Wait, then how do you know where we're going? Eve asks him. We have a seeing eye stream. Anyone in the private stream initiative has a dedicated researcher helping them all over the place. Makes the little buggers seem all-knowing, Harold says, pointing down at his brother piloting the robot. Oh, that would do it, Eve remarks. You know this doesn't have to be the end, Herbert says. What? We're piloting a training program on Albrecht to see if we can train up undaunted soldiers without moving them from world to world. If you're willing to be trained alongside our rabbis, then you should be fine. Those are the four armed people with big fossa like ears, right? Right, you've got a furless lop rabbis to work with. I don't know what that means. You know how Aramenta have elements? Harold asks. Yes. Well, rabbis are generally the same, but appearance-wise have differences. The furrier ones are closer to the original rabbis, small muzzle, whiskers, and a coating of fur. But the furless ones look like Ch.Ch.341-345 with extra body parts. But whether they are furry or furless, they can be standard or lop. Standard-eared rabbis have their ears stand up straight like a fossa, but a lop has them hang down instead. So she's bald with big flops of skin hanging down off her head? No furless means they only have hair in one or two places. Herbert says, not using the male term, and Harold swallows his grin. Like you, or like Harold. You both have hair, but you're not covered in fur. Anyways, if you're willing, we can put you on that program, Harold says, and Eve just looks at him oddly. What? I just don't get it, she says, giving Harold and Herbert both their own odd look. Don't get what? Herbert asks. It doesn't make sense why you Undaunted would put so much effort into things. I thought the Lord Moth would be a one-off. I signed up to see for myself if it was real, and it is. It doesn't make sense, though. You give so much, do so much, and try so hard, but with no tangible goal. No, nothing seems to be for you. The Moth gave Miru back to the spoiled princess, and only after ending conspiracies, breaking an oncoming famine, reuniting the Greenstone, and he gave it back. As he became emperor of the entire world, he was more putting her into an administrator role, Harold says. Yes, but only after... Eve says and tapers off as she thinks. There is a sudden shift to the light, and they all turn to see the massive figure of a lava serpent being crushed against the city shields as another and then another slam into it. Then they all fall as one. Possible literally one, with the sheer force of the winds having crushed the creatures together. Huh. We found a way to make reliable money and friends by being the good guys, Herbert says. There's a lot of money in being benevolent if you're willing to put in the work, and you can screw people who try to screw you first. After all, you don't need to add more lies to the truth to shore it up. Just restate it. There's also the fun fact that if you have a reputation for being honest and forthright, then no one expects something sneaky out of you, Harold says, and Herbert lets out a giggle that sounds like purest innocence. Eve blinks, takes a few moments to remember that Harold's insanity was born of Herbert, and then has to slap herself to restart her mental processes. Oh boy, Eve says. Anyways, here we are. This is where we can make your reservation back to Albrecht, Herbert exclaims. One more thing before we go in, Eve says. Yes? Why am I getting this big escort? I know you two are important. We're looking for an excuse to hang during duty hours, and this is letting us get away with it, Harold says shamelessly, and Herbert points up at him in response. Oh, that makes a lot more sense. See? Lots of ways to be a good person while getting what you want out of it. Even if you decide to not rejoin us in any way, remember that, Harold says as he opens the door to the small travel station, with a board security guard, a few terminals, and a portal leading to the primary transport hub in orbit. It takes 2 minutes to send her on her way and for her to walk onto the opposite side. So who's the eye on her? I'm not familiar with our local security systems. Right, well, we have several cameras up in the main hub up there, and if you examine my communicator here, you'll see that we can see her. Herbert begins to explain to Harold as they walk through the howling streaks. Stones, giant serpents and snails made of iron and molten stone slamming into the city shields at random as the world screams and convulses. It's utter madness, Torment says as she looks down the road to the seas, the debris build up upon the shield, and watches as it's held up by the wind and forced to deform and shift before suddenly, it's over, and a gigantic chunk of ash, half-melted stone, and random slag slams to the ground in the mouth of the cave entrance to the city. Then a building shifts and reveals a starship-scale plasma cannon that levels itself directly at the debris. There is the hum of a Ch.Ch.341-345 weapon charging, and then there's a blast of blue fire from the muzzle that strikes the stone, ash and slag dead center, and reduces it to a puddle that slides off the edge and drips back into the canyons below. After a few moments, the enormous plasma gun powers down and retracts back into its housing. Fun, eh? The chiming and inviting voice of little Herbert asks, and Torment turns in shock. He had simply arrived. Harold was a good 5 paces back and offers her a friendly wave. Welcome to Scathach. What do you think of your first storm? I think an active space battle with cannibals might be safer. Oh, probably, Harold says. Still, I'm here with my brother to deliver your next guides. They'll be in the private stream, guys, and will be acting like Herbert here. Then I'm heading off to do the tourist thing with my family. See if we can't schedule a hunt. And what if we want to hunt? Do you even have armor rated for the nonsense out there? Harold asks, pointing to the cave entrance, where some chunks of obsidian and half-formed igneous stone is still falling from the sky. No, we weren't expecting to hunt opponents inside the muzzles of engines. I'm 90% sure that isn't the right word for that. But I understand, and let's get you to the Ram. I'm sure the boys there will have a hoot putting together the armor you need, Harold says. It's not. The right word is nozzle, by the way, Herbert says. That just sounds wrong. Language is fucked on a good day, Herbert says, and the swear coming out of so innocent a voice and so cute a child throws everyone off. Anyways, my fellow streamers are here. They'll show you to the Ram. I want to spend time with family and meet everyone and introduce myself. It's also a great way to get ready in advance of everyone showing up on Centris so I can properly host everyone. Hello, Miss Snake Ladies. A small army of identical little boys in oversized uniforms with overeager salutes and earnest expressions state as one. We're private stream and we're here to help you. Mistresses of physical stealth, meet the masters of social stealth, Harold says with a big grin on his face. Thank you, big brother. The private streams call out as one and several Vishanian outright vanish. So they can recognize the danger. Good on them, Harold notes and Herbert snickers. Are you sure this is needed? Velocity asks as she's being measured for thermal-resistant armor. Around her, a semi-transparent hologram is showing where the plating, underweave, and seals will all be. The trick is trying to get the neck flexible enough without compromising on suit integrity or environmental protection. I don't need to go out and hunt myself, and we will be in a shielded shuttle, right? I'm going to be in a suit, and I have a brand that technically means I could go out in nothing but a thong and tanning oil, Harold says, and he gives everyone a moment to digest that mental image. Boo! Boo, I say! Herbert jeers him from where he's sitting, cross-legged on top of a crane, holding up the upper torso of a suit of mechanized armor. Harold shrugs even as his brother gives him a thumbs down. Yeah, that's going too far even on a good day, Mr. White says as he holds up a data pad for Harold to read. She's going to need to read it too. All of you are. You're all in stages of pregnancy, and there are additional rules and regulations. Oh, all right. I'm guessing Grandma Yzma took care of all this when I was here last? Herbert asks before examining his hand as he allows the illusion to fade a bit before ramping it back up. In a sense. Undoubtedly. Actually, there could be some streamlining if you were physically here and not just piloting a prosthetic body. Would claiming to be a synth help? Herbert asks. It would help like amputating your foot in response to stubbing your toe. Legally speaking, Mr. White remarks. Really? Legal precedent means yes. Believe me, with extended lifespans, absurd axiom tricks, and numerous ways to cheat death, you would not believe some of the cases I've read through. It's like a goddamn circus on the best day. But yeah, there's an entire circus for cases of people using prosthetic bodies to fake being synths. The most banal of them involve people trying to claim to be somewhere else when they were actually committing a crime. It's made a lot of courts really touchy about such things. Mr. White reads out before suddenly looking up and looking as several pieces of numerous anti-material rifles are placed on a nearby table as the worker rushes back to get more. What's that for? I broke the weapon of an ally, and I'm replacing it. I see. So they have their own access to weapons, but you're being diplomatic and friendly. Replacing property damaged in a friendly spar. Understood. Is there a problem with anti-material rifles? They're in the range where they're too big for self-defense, but much too small for use against the lava serpents. Therefore, there are local concerns with such things. Mr. White explains, and Harold nods, and Herbert snorts. Is there any file name I can look up? See if there's a highlight reel or something? Herbert asks from his perch. Look up False Synth Symphony. Some of the greatest hits have been put to music, Mr. White says, and Herbert's smile lights up the room before he goes for his communicator even harder. Then there is music in the room, and Herbert starts giggling at the sight of whatever it is he's watching. He then pauses it as the door opens, and a sonar man and Ch.Ch.341-345 walk in. That them? Herbert asks. Yep, Harold says, and Herbert tilts his head to the side and raises an eyebrow. Who's the twerp? Terry asks. Original flavor, Harold says, and Herbert nods. What? I'm a clone. That's the mild version. What? You're the mild one. I'm the original flavor, Herbert says. No, I'm the spicy version. Your original flavor, Harold counters. What are you two? Snacks? Terry teases, and Herbert sweeps off his hat and turns up the shine on his eyes to 1,000, as Harold cracks his neck as he rolls his shoulders and turns up his own presence as hard as he can. You're both damn lucky Aunt Ace isn't here. You'd be her playthings then. To say nothing of the fact that if any of these girls weren't already his, that there'd be more happening than the Takra climbing after the smaller one, Todd remarks. Hey, sis, Herbert says, even as Uma grabs him around the waist, hefts him up, and hops down. You do know that's a robot projection of my older brother, and not a child of ours, right? Harold asks. Shut up, Mother Instinct's screaming. Must defend adorable child, Uma says. It's hard to direct the weapon, isn't it? Herbert asks. We did get a bit of friendly fire, didn't we? Harold asks.